Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. There are some people cheering for us to be back, and we are in the Philosophical Midwifery book once again. Lately, I haven't been posting as much as I used to because I've been focused on music stuff, but I am trying to put out podcasts as much as I can and squeeze them in wherever I can. So often that's after I've been playing music all night, so I will seem very tired. That's why. Or first thing in the morning. I'm going to take them where I get them. So that being said, today we are taking it because it is where I can get it. And you can get it too.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
We can all get it. And what we are getting is an understanding of the Pathologos. The cause of our problems are a certain class of problems that we are stuck in. A class of problems we are not able to reflect on and understand the cause of and learn from as we are other things. So, as we read in the first chapter, it began with the author fighting the Nazis. Pertinent at the time of recording, as the Nazis seem to be coming back. And, well, we are learning from our reading why that must be the case. And it is tied to the question that Pierre had while on the literal battlefield against the Nazis. Why are we just repeating the same problems we've been repeating since Roman times? We have walked this road to fight the barbarians so many times before. It goes all the way into our past. Why can we be mature and rational about so many things, but not about ourselves? Such that... Gotta try for this.
This guy had to admit,
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
Essentially that. Shout out to Some More News. Great YouTube channel. Why are we not learning? Why are we repeating the same problems? Leading to the discovery of this class of human problem called the Pathologos, or sick logos, or false belief. That itself needs to be understood, and understood with a degree of precision. And what we're learning from our reading, perhaps also from our development of this as an art, the art of a midwife, the art of a dialectician, which would be nothing other than seeing through your understanding. So long as you are understanding through the logos or through the dialectic, which of course is the goal, because while that's in the first chapter, the question, why are we still fighting Nazis as the ancient Romans fought barbarians on the same road I'm walking right now? Isn't that insane? Why can't we solve problems? To the discovery of the cause of such problems that needed to be understood, the Pathologos. So thank you. Thank you to Pierre. A bigger round of applause. And some comments from the crowd.
Wow.
There we go. That's good.
Wow!
Yes. And the second chapter that we're in right now begins with the statement, it is entirely possible to verify for ourselves that we are living in a caring and intelligible universe. So, we have gone from how do we solve, I guess, the most important human problem to solve? What blocks us from learning? And thus being able to learn to understand the cause of fascism and capitalism and oppression, and anything, just anything. Anything is a puzzle to be understood and learned from. What blocks us from that? That's the puzzle. And then the second chapter begins with, by the way, in answering that puzzle, you will be verifying for yourself that what we are using and mastering in order to free ourselves from our problems is a universal language called the Logos, or the Self-Logos. It's called the Self-Logos because self speaks to it having its own eternal existence. Universal, it's not an opinion. That's why understanding can unite everyone, because it has its own eternal existence as a Self-Logos. Self also means honorific. The highest kind of logos, the highest kind of thinking, the highest way of understanding and being and functioning. Logos is also a kind of functioning. But self is also immediate and personal, the most immediate, the most personal. And I think that's where the fun, the joy, the childlike whimsy, the punchline of higher insights that we can gain seem to be around, or so those people kind of seem to allude to, and we can understand. How can that which is the most profound also be the most immediate? Which also can be understood within, well, what some say is the primary problem, the one many problem. If one, why many, or how many? Anyway, to do with selves, we have the Self-Logos that we're talking about now without getting off on a tangent. Self pointing to the fact that it has its own existence, meaning it's universal, meaning we don't have to defend or be loyal to false beliefs or tribalism or in-group, out-group stuff that has been plaguing our world up until now. Because it's the Self-Logos, it's universal, anybody can share in it, understand in it. And of course, self having not just the honorific, but the immediate. It's also your logos, your voice, somehow the logos has to have been a reflection of the self primarily as the first cause. So we're learning about ourselves along the way. So what? Well, in doing so, we can confirm our understanding of the understandability of problems, and the fact that it's important and good for us to go through the learning process of learning how to understand problems, midwifery. We have to see how all of this whole process is essentially just. And that's the claim at the start of the second chapter of the book. Let me just turn down something here on my 1, 2, how about this? 1. It's better. Actually, it's worth reading that opening of the second chapter, because it's such a good paragraph. Here we go. It is entirely possible to verify for oneself that we are part of a caring and intelligible universe. The verification is a kind of proof, since it is a way of, make sure I'm on the right screen, yes, a way of understanding that is based upon a realization that. So we're verifying what we're learning through our understanding by reading this together. And the verification comes about due to a realization, and the realization is that our mind constantly communicates with us and for our benefit. The communications from the mind are as profound as they are and utterly appropriate to our circumstances. So while the scope of the mind is pervasive, its precision is always directed to what is personally significant. There's the profound and the personal, the immediate and the transcendent. Somehow, functioning together. We'll finish that paragraph. We will demonstrate that our choice of goals, the problems we face, the daydreams or fantasies we have, and the dreams that visit us in our sleep, each and every one of them are like doorways into the richest source of insights into our life. Wow. What we discover through these insights is that the mind itself provides ample evidence of its own goodness and intelligibility. Isn't that neat? So in understanding the mind and how to free us from the blocks, specifically the blocks that prevent us from learning, the question from chapter 1, we're discovering that I suppose if we do this well, however that turns out to be as we learn, we will be also discovering that the mind that we are reflecting on is showing us the evidence of its goodness and intelligibility. Understandability is rational, we can make sense of it, and it cares for us. But what we might say of other people, they've got a good heart and a good head. These are the most beautiful people, reflecting what we are discovering of the ultimate beauty of mind. And the logos is the way we do it. We're learning the logos or the intelligibility or the pattern of this particular art, philosophical midwifery, by understanding how that same pattern manifested in our youth to create the conditions for our pathologos, false image of the self that we don't know that we're carrying, that is at the root of our fantasies and daydreams, which is why we can cut them off at the beginning, because they all start with that image and play out the implications through a dialectic, by the way, which is interesting. Fantasies that reflect our everyday lives and what we also have allusion to several times, dreams. Messages from our dreams reflect the same kinds of drama that follow from a certain definition of what, of yourself, of that thing, the most profound and the most immediate thing that we're here to discover and learn about and perhaps master, or master the logos of, the self-logos. There's a false image of that in the way that will block your learning of that other thing. What was the Nazi question? What has blocked our learning? Why are we still fighting the barbarians opposing reason? Opposing the logos? What's blocking us from learning? What we discover is that's the pathologos that can be understood in a certain kind of way according to this art, which allows us to free ourselves from that block, to be able to learn and become mature, or what I think has been called in the text, entering the human race. Human or Homo sapien or man the thinker. So being able to think, We've also had metaphors of being a zombie or a sleepwalker, because this false definition of the self that's blocking our learning of the real self and blocking of the mastery of the self-logos. We don't know we're carrying it, and it's usurping the throne for what we should be searching for, which is actually referred to in the Republic in the study of the philosopher called solid geometry. Really, really quickly, there are 5 studies that the philosopher does leading up to the dialectic, what we're learning. Like 5 preliminary studies of the philosopher leading into the dialectic. One of them is solid geometry, and he says, well, we can't really talk about that because no one wants to learn about the self. And we would say also the self-logos. It's both. The realizations along with the mastery of the understanding and the art that we are forced to learn going through the human experience in order to free ourselves from our problems properly. Somehow that process has to be seen as this opening paragraph says, utterly appropriate to our circumstances, directed to what is personally significant, is the highest sense of goodness. I mean, that seems like a stretch sometimes, given what's happening in the world and how we are playing out the implications of having that block. So we're learning how to A, unblock ourselves, and B, learn an art in the process. An art which maybe the conditions that anyone needs, and we're all here to learn in order to gain this kind of understanding through both, or understanding and direct realization and seeing about the nature of reality itself. So it's a win-win.
Have you read Brad?
Wow.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
My chair slips down during the course of time. Okay, so that's the overview. That's where we're at. I have to remind myself whenever I take several days off. And we are learning about that Pathologos, that usurper of the throne, the false belief of the self-logos that we don't know we're carrying, that's causing us to be blocked. But somehow we're forced to address as human beings, and therefore we're given something to answer the question, why go through this? Why go through this period of ignorance and the playing out of the implications of not having this art, only to realize, yeah, we better fucking learn this art? How can all that suffering be justified for that recognition? Well, apparently we'll see it for ourselves, and as well as going through what we need to go through to, help ourselves, right? And be able to extend that intelligibility and goodness to our loved ones. Why not? There are 11 sections in here. We are on number 10, the Logos, within chapter 2 of the Pathologos. I'm going to read the first sentence of where we're up to so far to remind us. 10th, knowing there is a possibility of resolving our own pathologos places a new responsibility upon us. We want our understanding of ourselves to be confirmed in our own experience. We recognize within us the need to demonstrate to ourselves that our speculations and dialogues have a vital connection to reality. As our conclusions in the past have bound us to our problems, so also do they have the power to loosen the bonds of the pathologos. We can see the evolution from belief into the logos as we reflect on what was necessary for us to emerge from the web of pathologos. The movement is integrative. It brings what was separated together into a unity. Isn't that fucking amazing? So this can also shed light on any conflicts that we're facing in the political sphere or the everyday world. Are they a conflict between people tied to belief and maybe even pathologos belief versus people who are trying to follow the logos, extend reason, care, goodness, intelligibility, the things that we are learning to see in the universe, but also by being ourselves as we master the art of the universe or the art of the self-logos. So isn't that neat? It's a problem of different cognitive functions, one of belief, one of logos. Okay, good. I'll tell everyone and factor this into how we can move from the belief into the logos, please. Would be the implication of this in society, but of course we're learning it for ourselves. First and foremost, the evolution from belief into logos, but we also have to go through that experience as human beings, because it ain't easy. Necessarily, going into the logos will generate that counterattack, or just the first block, the simple attack, the first attack of the pathologos. So in our human experience, we don't just get to go from ignorance to understanding, or from no logos to logos. We have to also emerge from the web of the pathologos, which ties us to belief-based thinking necessarily, because it was false images that gave it its power, but also is threatened by the logos. But as we are doing so, we somehow are brought together as a being into a greater unity, which is interesting because that reflects what we're learning about virtue in our reading of Plato. One way of understanding virtue that Socrates used as a metaphor was harmony, to be harmonized, all of the aspects of yourself harmonized in some way together. Sounds very much like temperance, doesn't it? But in not just the movement from our belief to logos, or belief to understanding and knowing, but also a knowing that transcends the immediate, is universal, and so on. It goes far beyond just images and beliefs. That movement, along with what we are discovering, is we need to also go through in untangling that spiderweb of pathologos, is the human condition. That's just what we have to play. That's just what the cards we're dealt. Which is interesting because we need to understand it to solve the first question: how do we learn? What blocked us from learning? How do we finally end Nazism again, but like properly this time? Like, how do we learn? And what has blocked us from learning? but also universally, why are we here? If this is the primary sort of activity we're all given necessarily, and our problems, our choice of goals, all the things we read in the first paragraph, our problems, our fantasies, our daydreams, our blocks, our repeating cycles of failures, and even the problems we face in our dreams as we sleep each night reflect this problem, telling us this is what we're here to solve. But in doing so, you have to learn about what you're not, learn an art or a way of thinking or seeing what's there, void of interpretations, in order to free yourself from this problem that all humans get. It's not personal, so it can't be blame or punishment. So you get both, a kind of freedom from something false at the same time evolving into, well, the logos, self-logos. Okay, facing a problem brings us to see that there may be something we haven't grasped with clarity. To attempt to achieve what we have failed at before is to reopen earlier conflicts. That runs a risk. So we are returning with this art in our back pockets, or this acknowledgement that, yeah, we're learning, we're reading. So we're not just reopening a wound to sort of, poke it and hurt it more. We're coming back with Ghostbuster backpacks on. And we've got the anti-gravity nuclear gun thing. We've got the weapons now. We've got some mastery of this art that we're learning simply by reading. And recognizing that it's a relationship. It's not something you have to get down completely before you start. You start now.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Because you're on the journey anyway.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're a wizard, Harry. But also this speaks to the new way of reflecting on problems, seeing them as intelligibly, providentially, caringly, wisely sent clues to help us solve a puzzle, because whatever parts of our conflicts have not yet seen will emerge to block us, not because we're evil or getting punished by God, because these are clues that we have to add to our puzzle-solving process of ousia, or self-reflection. So the fundamental change is from seeing how we currently see problems as excuses for people to do their pathologos, usually through what we have read about called intimidation, where you blame a single person for a problem instead of actually solving it properly with maturity and reason, reflection on causes. You lie about solving a problem and you blame a person, which is the exact opposite of what we're here to do if we are to discover the intelligibility, goodness, and divine and noble nature of ourself. Then saying the self is anything other than that is false, harmful, wrong. So it's lying about solving the problems, lying about the cause, because it asserts that the person's innate badness was the cause. So you're lying about metaphysics, that there is a supernatural force called evil or badness that just wants to do bad things, rather than what we have learned and seen and are learning, but it's not the case. It's a lie. So, lying about solving problems, lying about the cause. What was that last lie that we just outlined? Yeah, lying about the nature of the self. in order to therefore justify this word, which is also a lie, punishment, the idea that you are made better by inflicting badness. So that's another lie. And that punishment means I can inflict my pathologos, or play the pathologos role of the person subjugating, intimidating, oppressing, hurting the self. And people are, because the pathologos motivates human beings, until we pick up on this game, whether we like it or not, there is a part of us that is drawing us, and for some people it's completely governing their lives, and they are zombies or sleepwalkers, guiding themselves to put themselves in situations where they can use that way of understanding problems as excuses for punishment to justify inflicting the pathologos and playing out that role, doing unto others what was done unto them they haven't understood and resolved yet through midwifery. So so essentially what we are asking us is, do we want to continue addressing problems in the pathologo sense, lying about all of those many things we've listed in order to justify inflicting further suffering, which just solidifies whatever pathologos impulses we have? Or do we want to solve problems according to the logos, curiosity, reason, and understanding, verifiably that the problems we have are clues to help us solve puzzles, not excuses for inflicting suffering, you sadistic fucking pathologos bastards. Sorry about that last thing. Because it's not just them, right? It's the tradition that we have yet to awaken to, let's say. But that's what's happening. And once we've made that first step, the world's our oyster. Or, as you say in Australia, you're laughing. You're laughing. Because now you're open to these sorts of things as we read them. Whatever parts of our conflicts has not been seen will emerge to block us. Now we're choosing side A, the logo side, to see all problems, all human problems, as puzzles to reflect on, to not just solve, but to learn the art of reflection. And not the bullshit one, excuses to inflict, to lie on several things, on many, many things, in order to statistically play up pathologos injustice. Grow up. Like, it's been said now, it's been said, it's been written down, and you can prove it for yourself. No more playing dumb. It's been said. Or what we would say in the hero's journey, this is a call to adventure of anyone who has come across these words, however you are hearing them or reading them. It's been said. So now let's do side A. Now if we are doing side A, what are we doing? Well, we're opening ourselves to guidance, instructions, clues. Well, yeah, to those very clues, like this right here we're reading. Isn't that interesting? As we are trying our best to do this, to be midwives to ourselves and our loved ones. If I've missed something significant in that reflection, maybe it will emerge tomorrow in a similar conflict. So you're learning new skills now. You can incorporate that question into every new problem. A new problem. Maybe this is the self-logos reflecting an aspect of my puzzle I've yet to integrate into my solution. Or I've yet to solve the puzzle awesome as it needs to be solved. And of course, you're open to the specifics of whatever that happens to be. Okay, it's with certainty that we will have conflicts that will appear, but what is different is the knowledge that it can be anticipated, it can be studied in the very moment of its appearance. When it appears, there is a challenge to resolve it. We come back with our weapons. We've leveled up. I'm gonna keep reading. Let's keep going. I think it's like the third time we read through this on. We are given an opportunity to confirm our understanding, test it, and we're just improving our precision. People worried about rereading the same thing 3 times. And it is in this process we enter into the logos process. But logos is not merely understanding. For the understanding that one has reached must be tested and confirmed in experience.
Wow.
The confirming is an integrative movement. For without testing and validating our understanding and our reality, we are left only with possibilities or likely stories. Wah. Whatever one is seeing and understanding, it will not be retained, and its maturing power will be lost unless confirmed in one's experience. Again, pointing to the fact that it's a process and we are improving as we are improving. It's a maturing process. Addressing that first question of the book, why are we immature? Well, this is how we become mature. And the memory and the maturing power will be lost unless you confirm the understanding you gain in midwife talks, midwifery reflection, unless you confirm it in your experience. In returning again and again to test one's vision in one's present circumstance where the clues happen, that maturity is gained. What? And the logos becomes manifest. Hooray.
Wow.
There we go. We know too well that only in our present circumstances can we confirm and verify our understanding, since being in a problem is responding to the present as if the hidden analogy, the crux of our problem, our soul can function through this miraculous thing called analogy, another logos, allowing us to learn a logos of whatever level we're at, and then apply it analogically another logos to a higher level so we can reflect on and maybe even understand a higher level of the logos, which might be the creating of the conditions for us to jump into that next level of evolution or development or level of maturity, if you want to use that word. But also in doing so, you're surfacing your Pathologos block, so you're being forced to address that also. Yeah, it's a process of that through analogy that we are on, but also it's that very misuse of that archetypal or primary principle within us. The usurping of the throne, as I like to say, of a false analogy where we are unconsciously and zombie-like, parasitically applying a false analogy. We are applying to the present as if it were the past Pathologos scene. We apply past solutions to analogous situations without realizing, without realizing something. Where are we? That the scenes are only in part analogous. Thus, in seeking out those present scenes that are analogous to the early Pathologos scenes, you can join team wisdom and like really push the issue, like run towards your destiny, your highest goal, the self-destiny. Run towards your highest purpose by seeking scenes in your present that are analogous to those early Pathologos scenes, because there is where you will find the arena. Wow. In which you can emerge from the catacombs of false belief. So we have an arena, so fighting arena like in Morrowind, I suppose. But we also have catacombs. I'm thinking Diablo, very powerful imagery, very ahead of its time, this book. So that's where you find the arena to emerge from the catacombs of false belief, because it is there that we can test whether or not we are free of those conclusions. The conclusions that bind us to the past. While it is clear that the imposition of belief establishes power and authority over the subject, it is not at all obvious that we always have the opportunity to get out of it. In every moment, there is a chance to get out of our submission, retain our integrity, regain our integrity, our selfhood, our highest selfness, seeking our self goals through the self logos. We can get back wherever we left off and keep going. And in this struggle to become more authentically ourselves, the network of Pathologos is what we struggle against, and its formidable structure is nothing other than that set of interpretations that we accept as real. Boo! The power then is assured and kept in place by our reluctance to examine each and every claim that lies behind the Pathologos. Examine it. Just like if you're having a conversation with a Pathologos type person, somebody who is trying to fight against the logos, reason, goodness, care, our higher selves, our truer selves, our guide to our truer selves. If we look at our problems and our dreams and our fantasies in this way, so those people that fight against their own guides and their own higher selves and their own higher purpose, one of the things they can do is want to make speeches or make 15 gish galloped, I think is the name of the term. Make 15 really quick statements. No, we have a obligation to examine the claims of each and every one. No justice left behind. Not as excuses to further inflict punishment and Pathologos, which is what they might fear you are doing when you say, hang on, let's look at every claim. What? More opportunity to get caught out and get hit? But let me show, I'm already loyal to my family clan ignorance. You don't have to continue to hit me, is what they say. Or what they're afraid of by being slowed down and say, hey, no gish galloping. Every claim. Whether it's in dialogue with others or listening to that voice reflected in our own minds. Okay, in every moment, there's a chance to get out of our submission, to regain our integrity, and in this struggle to become, we struggle to become more authentically ourselves. So that's another neat cap on what we're learning here. What are we learning? This art of midwifery, the art of the self-logos. Also, we're learning how to be more authentically ourselves. Add that to the definition that we're working on of what exactly is philosophical midwifery. The network of the Pathologos is what we struggle against, and its formidable structure is nothing other than a set of interpretations we accepted as real. The power is then assured and kept in place by our reluctance to examine each and every claim that lies behind the Pathologos. It is nothing other than the effect of not reviewing what we ourselves have concluded. We got to review our own pathologos, and it's what we have ourselves concluded. Again, not blame, given the conditions of you, your soul, and all of the other things we have learnt to recognize need to be there for the pathologos. It's not one cause, and it's not your badness. There is something about being here that we are being forced to address any belief about our badness. That's what a pathologos is. And for some reason, reality is forcing our souls to not accept it. So it's not examining the conclusions in order to inflict blame or punishment, it's the opposite. It's a message for your soul from the self that's somehow generating each moment in this intelligible and caring way. That's our understanding. We got to go out and apply it so we can remember it, and it will have a maturing power over us. But it's still pretty awesome to discover this about reality, isn't it? I think so. I say yes. So if we don't examine our own conclusions for any of those reasons or other ones, then the network of the pathologos, its formidable structure, the false interpretations, the false analogy behind it all, and our suffering and repeating cycles of pathologos, and maybe even the upward trajectory of the development of our soul, may be all in peril, or the power is kept in place by our reluctance to examine each and every claim that lies behind the pathologos. We've got to be open, curious, wondering, and learning the art to reflect in this kind of a way. It's nothing other than the effect of not reviewing what we ourselves have concluded, because in not reviewing these conclusions, we tacitly accept the interpretations. Equally so, currently in our time, by not applying logos to politics, we are tacitly accepting the pathologos to usurp the throne. This it's all relative idea that we have. Hey, there is no truth. May have been a good shield against those fascists who say, my false beliefs are true and I get to kill you in order to prove that. Aren't we all entitled to our own opinion? Might have been a good shield against that ignorance, but now it's time to say, okay, but also let's find the truth. Like we do everywhere else. Let's learn this logos. Which includes examining the legitimacy of the claims. And if we don't, they will have power over us. The beliefs are crafted in our youth, we struggle against them our entire lives. This principle of forcing experience to conform to belief, this is a big one. Especially if you've ever had arguments with your friends or maybe ex-friends. One of the reasons they might be ex-friends is because they have a tendency to try to force reality to conform with certain beliefs. Pathologos beliefs. Interpretation, that's what it's called. The pathologos cannot be believed without interpretation. Once interpretation is accepted, the dramatic episode with all its stages becomes the model for relating in all analogous situations, which is wild. There are steps to the drama. People bend, try and use their rhetoric or their gish galloping or whatever it is to interpret, to project their own beliefs and try and force reality to fit that image. That's not the end of it. That's just the starting point. That's just the start of the race. Now there are stages to that obstacle course. Now you do this. Now I do this. Now I this, and then this happens. Which is wild because it's their problem, but there is a familiarity and a safety that might be appealing, so long as we have yet to examine and reflect the true reasons for this false conclusion and who we are accepting to get love and acceptance from if they are not actually modeling truth and justice when they are introducing these pathologos conditions for our conclusions. But again, it was crafted knowingly. They don't know why, but they know they did it. So, interesting. Comes a model for all analogous situations. Naturally, the adherence to a rational model, rational method means there must be no interpretations or other forms of intrusion by the midwife as well. Interpretation is when somebody adds to or subtracts from what is being considered. This adding and subtracting distorts the meaning of what is being reflected on. It changes it into the belief of the interpreter. Interpretation, conscious or unconscious, is the forced delivery of the interpreter's own offspring. I remember this because we talked about the alien movies that you could make, like the body horror kind of expression of this forced giving birth of the midwife's own child. Weird. Yeah. But interesting and artful. So long as the whole movie was to communicate this to the world. Very good if you did that. But also, forced delivery of the interpreter's own offspring. The result of a solitary fantasy of the interpreter. In contrast, the midwife and pregnant party together must proceed to deliver what is ready to be brought to birth. So there must be some part of this art we're learning to judge if it's ready. Readiness of a seeing into the pathologos. Or a seeing into the self that you'll be free to therefore see once this pathologos has gotten out of the way. Flicked it off the table. Which is interesting. We keep that in mind as we read. Write that down somewhere. I've got a board here, but I don't want to open it yet. The birth must be the pregnant party's own and not contaminated by the beliefs of the midwife. Challenging interpretations is challenging their legitimacy. So we have to challenge interpretations when they come up. And of course, being a midwife, if this is the highest art, kind of what we're not forced, but this is the human game. This is the mastery of the art. Or okay, now you're in the game.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
You can start. Hey, good morning. You can start allocating your skill points and stuff. But this is the game, the art of midwifery, or the art of the logos, or the art of the dialectic. But as that may be the reason we are here, our highest purpose, it will therefore be the biggest kind of a challenge to our pathologos. Meaning, if we are being a midwife, we can anticipate false interpretations and maybe to come up without our suspecting it, as we are on this journey as well. Therefore, we have to follow as a principle, or we're seeing why it's important to follow as a principle, the idea that we are able to challenge interpretations when they come up. The importance of, so we don't go through that body horror interpretation of the midwife giving birth to a false baby.
I'll just start my baby in my chest.
And that's what happens if you don't recognize there's a principle in this art of challenging interpretations, which is adding to what's there or leaving out. Knowing the importance of testing, we return with a cautious spirit to those situations we find most significant. So that principle we're just talking about. Excellence or phronesis, or pursuing what's most significant, always. Which is gaining your integrity or learning to become more authentically yourself. What we're learning is you can't do that without dialectic in the back pocket, or as your way of seeing and reflecting on things as you pursue anything else. But anyway, isn't it neat? Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. We return with a cautious spirit to those situations we find most significant, there's that word, where we experience the blocks to our goals. There's the other part of that principle. Yeah, is where we find the blocks. Team 2 wise crew, 3 wise crew, whatever it is. Can't remember, but it was the thing we said last time. We are offered the opportunity to be true to ourselves when we return to those present problem scenes, because it is then that we can see if there is something we haven't understood. Go to the scene of the crime. Not a crime. Fun thing. Fun Sherlock Holmes. It's not your crime scene. You're Sherlock Holmes, remember. Technically it is an injustice that you suffered against yourself at your Pathologos scene, so you can say it's a crime scene, but not in a negative, punitive sense. It's somehow part of this intelligible, caring process. Blocks in the chat. Blocks could be of good use sometimes. Yes. How do we use it in a good way? Realize that the blocks that we encounter mean we're pursuing something that's significant, so that's good, but also that there is something we have yet to see about our past scene in our philosophical midwifery reflections. So there are some more clues we have yet to see. Always. Now, that principle you have to test for yourself. Otherwise, you won't integrate it into your way of being, and its maturing power won't have an influence over your soul. Go test it. Is this way of reflecting on ourselves, our blocks, our problems, our beliefs that we're learning here, the art of the dialectic, or the art of the logos, or the art of midwifery, saying the same thing, just 3 ways of saying the same thing. Is this the only way that problems can be seen as good? And is it the way that we should be approaching all problems? We return with a cautious spirit to those situations we find most significant, and where we experience the blocks to our goals. Ooh. We are offered the opportunity to be true to ourselves when we return to those present problem scenes, because it is then that we can see if there is still something we haven't understood. For if there is something we can't resist slipping, then it will be that we can't resist slipping into those old roles that play out that Pathologos drama. We can't resist it. It is by such testing that sooner or later we meet the situation directly and without premeditation. And we can see that we can act in a way that is wholly appropriate to the situation and wholly consistent with our most noblest goals. It is then that we learn what it takes to be oneself. Ourself without the domination of the Pathologos. As a consequence, we find that our interrelationships with others are now marked with a spirit of fairness, because they are conducted within an atmosphere where sharing and understanding are nurtured. Side A. Problems are puzzles to be reflected on, to solve them and to learn reflection. Not B. Problems are excuses to lie about someone being bad, lie about causes, lie about caring about learning, in order to inflict suffering or violence or oppression through the guise of punishment, which is really just playing out the sadism of the Pathologos. So that's what we're currently doing. Side B, we need to move over to side A, which is fair and rational. All we can say is a way of relating to ourselves and others and the world that would be marked with a spirit of fairness. Because now our relationships are conducted within an atmosphere where sharing and understanding are nurtured. Side A. From these It is from these conditions that there develops a keen sense of justice. Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Justice. Justice.
Wow. Wow.
What? Not that one. Justice. Keen sense of justice. It is when we share our seeing. It is when we share our seeing and understanding with another that a deeper side of oneself is reached, because to be oneself most ideally challenges the self in a most significant way. Hey, welcome, first time chatter. Hefty Humpalump, full name, Hefty Huffalump. So this is interesting because everything we've been reading up till now has been our own courage, our own character, our own moral imperative to reflect on our own pathologos, to free ourselves. But also now we've moved slightly into, but also with others, our relationship with others will be marked with a spirit of fairness. Because we're developing an atmosphere. This is a process. It's not a debate you win. It's a relationship to reality, where everything in reality is a reflection on the logos or the pathologos. It's all puzzles to be solved on purpose because we're here to learn something. Here to learn something that we are carrying about ourself or our soul that was false and limiting us. We're being forced to remove any anti-noble or anti-divine images of the self. That's the human condition we are finding ourselves in. So, what? Well, he's saying here that if you share this seeing and understanding with others, number one, you'll reach a deeper side of oneself. Now that's very interesting. Famously in the ox herding pictures, which are a series of 10 pictures in Japanese Buddhism, Chinese, Korean Buddhism, they have their own versions, but essentially 10 ox herding pictures describing the first 2 levels of being in ignorance, and then the next 8 levels of enlightenment within Buddhism. Levels of what we would recognize here as cognitive development or rising to a higher level of logos. Because analogy means you can apply one logos and as it is like or analogously to another level, which is what we use to climb the ladder of the logos to know the self, but also it can function as a black hole to draw us into this pathologos. If we are applying a false analogy, that's what the pathologos is, a false analogy. As you go through that, there is the second highest level, the 9th ox herding picture, where someone has reached, I guess, the end, but he's sitting alone in his hut. And the whip that was used to tame the ox is now on the wall, and the ox isn't even in the scene anymore, because the ox herding pictures are about a man coming to discover the presence of an ox, the presence of enlightenment, or the logos maybe, and the 8 stages of spiritual development within Buddhism as you reach final mastery of it. But the 10th ox herding picture is same guy as the last one, only he's in the marketplace. And the poem talks about him interacting with fishmongers and prostitutes. I think prostitutes or hotel owners. Some euphemism for people who deal with sex and people who deal with murder. Fishmongers have to kill fish. In other words, in their tradition, being able to share their highest level of seeing and understanding with even the people struggling the most, or seen as the lowest in society, even with them, that's a higher stage or a greater spiritual challenge. here we are seeing in the end of this chapter, the author, Pierre, saying, hey, by the way, if you share your seeing and understanding with others, then you will reach a deeper side of oneself, your highest goal, to know and show the self, oneself. So a challenge for all the introverts out there. We have a community here where you can learn, of course. We have a Discord you can join. I'm still learning myself, but ideally to create the spirit of sharing and understanding to be nurtured within this community so we can learn how to do this. And he's saying, by the way, challenging to be oneself most ideally challenges the self in the most significant way. So he's saying that when you are sharing your seeing understanding, you are being more ideally yourself, number one. And number two, he's saying, this is a challenge I'm giving you. Challenges the self in a most significant way. This whole book is for us. He's challenging us, which is kind of cool and neat. Right, so the ups and downs or the progress that you've seen or the challenges that you've had to yourself move from belief to logos, belief to understanding, which requires not just learning the logos, but addressing and tackling sufficiently the web of the pathologos. Got distracted by the spam in the chat. Right, so you have to experience what it's like to not just go from belief to logos, but to address the web of the pathologos sitting in the place of the logos first. You gotta untangle that web first to get off the throne where the actual logos should sit, where the actual self should sit. In doing that, you are challenging yourself, and in every moment you're challenging yourself to be more authentically yourself. Just read it again here. In every moment there is a chance to get out of our submission, to retain our integrity, and in this struggle we are becoming more authentically ourselves. The network of the pathologos is what we struggle against. Nothing is, and its formidable structure is nothing other than a set of interpretations, false, that we have accepted as real, and our reluctance to examine it. So what, as we go through that process, develop that courage, develop that integrity, reflect in this way, master this art, he is saying, by the way, share it. Share it. Share your highest understanding, share your seeing. And share what it's took you to, what it has taken you to learn about it, to stick with it, to try it out, to talk with it, talk about it over coffee instead of gossip. But hey, gossip can be fun. But how about you approach all gossip in this way? What is it telling us? How can you approach it as a dialectic? What's it saying about your problems? How does it reflect the dreams that you're having? In other words, at all times be pursuing your most significant goal, self-mastery of the self-logos, while also sharing that. And if you do so, says the author here, you'll reach a higher side of yourself. A Japanese Buddhist might point to the 9th and the 10th and say you'd make that jump. I don't know if that's the case. We'll have to figure that out if anybody gets there, and they can reflect and see if the oxherding pictures describe the jump they made when they were moved to share their understanding and seeing of the self-logos. But yeah, it's a challenge, and it's my challenge to you.
You're a wizard, Harry.
It's that guy's challenge to Harry Potter.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
It's Gandalf's adventure to God damn it. What's the word I'm talking about here? It's the challenge to Frodo. It's the call to adventure, isn't it? Develop this sharing or the soil, plant the seeds, share your seeing and understanding. And in doing so, you will reach a higher, deeper side of yourself, oneself, and is a challenge to be the self in the most significant way. So, enjoy the journey, but share the journey. Share your seeing and understanding. In this way, the art of the dialectic in all things. And, and come back and help the rest of us. When you get to the 9th oxherding picture, consider us in the 10th. Consider us fishmongers. And share your art with the rest of us and the world. And on that note, we haven't gotten any further in the text, but it's time for me to go. We'll continue from here next time. I think we've mastered this section. Worth mastering. It's the Logos section of the Pathologos chapter, so worth it. Thank you once again for joining me, and I will see you next time.